The Overland Route, the Transcon, and the Sunset Route, all legendary monikers for legendary railroads. While the western United States has many, one road in the east stands out from the rest, the Water-Level Route, the glorious backbone of the famed New York Central Railroad. Today, the Water-Level Route serves as the Chicago line for both CSX and Norfolk Southern as a result of the Conrail split, with the NS flag flying high over the busier western end from Cleveland to Chicago. In this rail fanning trilogy, we'll be taking a detailed look at the Indiana segment of the line, from the open fields near the Ohio border to the industrial heart of Chicagoland. This is a detailed and comprehensive look into one of America's proudest railroads, the Chicago Line, a railroad superhighway presented by the Thornapple River Rail Series. Welcome to Butler, Indiana, a town of 2,700 people located just west of the Ohio border. Our first train bound for Chicago has just knocked down the signal to cross the Diamond with the Wabash Main Line. Butler is the only at-grade railroad crossing encountered by the water-level route between Toledo, Ohio and South Bend, Indiana. An impressive feat, it doesn't hurt that the NS is crossing over itself here, with the Detroit to Kansas City Wabash Main Line acting as friendly interference should any trains arrive at the same time. Norfolk Southern takes advantage of the connectors here between the once independent railroads, with this westbound intermodal turning southwest to head for Kansas City. While the Southeast Y has been active for decades, the Northwest Y was only recently installed around 2005 to allow the Canadian Pacific to run trackage rights trains over the NS as a bridge between Detroit and Chicago. Mixed in with the regular 53-foot domestic intermodal containers are several loads of trailers used to handle the containers over the road. These are likely being repositioned to handle a shortage of trailers elsewhere on the network. From here in Butler until Toledo, the railroad is straight as an arrow for 68 miles. That makes this the last curve this manifest will be seeing for a while. The trio of SD40-2s for power makes for a rather unique sight in today's age of wide cab locomotive power. While double-stack container service has taken over the intermodal scene in the last 20 years, today's Norfolk Southern continues to run a significant quantity of piggyback trailer service, harkening back to Conrail's lauded trailer van service along this part of the system. West of Butler, trains resume open mainline running. With a solo SD60E providing the horsepower, this autorack has just come off the Wabash, loaded with new automobiles from Detroit. Like many farmland regions throughout the country, several feed and grain facilities dot the Chicago line, including this one with its own switching locomotive to handle activities on the site as this eastbound manifest passes by on the high iron. Nine miles west of Butler is Waterloo, home to an Amtrak station and control point 367, so named as it is located near milepost 367 as measured from Buffalo, New York. The crossovers here allow for this westbound intermodal to change over to track 2 in order to pass slower traffic ahead. Along a local rail fanning landmark, this New York Central era signal bridge continued to hold the eastbound absolute signals here into 2018, despite replacements erected and awaiting installation. The old signals are hastily being replaced with the upcoming mandate to install positive train control, which will soon mean trains like this westbound are afforded greater protection from collisions and other hazards on the railroad. The signals soon lit up to show a clear indication for an eastbound on Track 2, which arrived a short time later. Six and a half miles west of Waterloo, around milepost 373, the village of Corunna supplies this overpass from which to view this eastbound crude oil train rolling through the haze on this January afternoon. Kendallville marks 379 miles from Buffalo, New York, and is another place where new signals await activation alongside their Tri-Light predecessors. Worth mentioning here in town is the 1-mile short line known as the Kendallville Terminal Railway. Their interchange provides decent business for NS to go along with the armada of run-through trains. At Brimfield, another group of Tri-Lights acting as permissive intermediates still stand guard. This time no replacements are nearby, but make no mistake that the end is near. NS has chosen to redistribute the intermediate signals for longer blocks and easier access for signal maintainers in this area, with the new masts located just down the line as we see here. Even these Tri-Light signals aren't all original, as most were originally constructed on brackets to save cost. However, the invention of the double-stack train and excess height cars created visibility problems for signals beyond the adjacent track. Conrail ultimately reinstalled many of the signals on standalone masts such as this one to solve this problem. With an SD70 ACE and SD60M for power, this manifest includes a lengthy cut of John Deere tractors heading to the East Coast for export abroad. While most East Coast locations are now accessible by double-stack intermodal equipment, some spots remain blocked by low clearances, leaving a few of these exclusively single-stack trains still running on the water-level route. Control points 395 and 397 together form a complete pair of crossovers, and both had new signals standing by early 2018. CP 397 is the westernmost bracket signal by this point and is passed by this eastbound intermodal before they meet the local working in town. Millersburg is the last small town before Goshen brings a much more urban feel to the railroad. Just before sunrise, this westbound Canadian Pacific trackage rights train interrupts the calm with the roar of their arrival. A bit later, the sun pokes out from behind the clouds as two more intermodal trains meet, double stack versus single. The overpass on the west side of town clears double stacks, but only barely, making for a close-up scene as we find out with this westbound. Goshen, for better or worse, has long had to deal with a busy railroad bisecting it, along with the Marion branch which turns off to head south. We are at the diverging point as it looked in early 2018 as a westbound intermodal enters the double-track territory that now extends all the way through to Elkhart. In 2014, faced with worsening fluidity east of Elkhart, Norfolk Southern embarked on a capacity expansion program that would be joined by the city of Goshen to reconstruct and alleviate traffic headaches. In this scene from April 2015, we see an intermodal race west under the last days of the old configuration. Three years later, in March of 2018, the scene from just one crossing down is quite different, with the elevator torn down and the city's new bypass bridges nearly complete as a loaded CP ethanol train rolls out of town on track 2. Moments later, Amtrak number 29, the Capital Limited, barnstorms through town. Next up is a slow eastbound to southbound Marion branch train, the inspiration for the new flyover bypass route. Before reconstruction, these trains rounded the curve even slower than this, which blocked a considerable amount of traffic on local arterial streets. Under the new arrangement, NS has been allowed to close several grade crossings and realign the curve, allowing for faster trains, which eventually paired with the bypass should greatly reduce traffic congestion here in Goshen. Behind the recently rebuilt SD70 ACU is a former Burlington Northern SD70 Mac on lease through Progress Rail to a very power-hungry NS. Later in the afternoon, we catch another southbound movement, this time led by CP and CEFX Power as they enter the Marion branch. This freshly repainted AC 4400 was apparently too clean for the camera as it briefly gets confused on how to focus. Before the recent expansion project, the Marion branch merged with the main line at Control Point 412 just west of downtown Goshen. This left a 3-mile segment of double track before the road widened back out to 3 mains at CP 415. Thus, in 2015, NS was busy reconfiguring 412 for the continuation of the branch's Track 3 to CP 415, which was then retired. We caught the westbound Capital Limited meeting an eastbound intermodal, which was working through the construction slow order. Skipping ahead back to 2018, CP412 has been in service in its new form for several years and is routinely used to cross over trains as they head towards Elkhart or out across northeastern Indiana. For this intermodal, the switches are set for them to ride over to Track 2 in order to run around a lower priority train ahead. From the west end, the plant looks impressive with trains working under the opposing signal cantilevers. Besides acting as a conduit for Marion branch traffic, the third main is also routinely used to hold inbound traffic before it can be accepted by the receiving yard in Elkhart. As such, this westbound CP-led manifest train heads over for the other side of the railroad, crossing over from Track 1 all the way over to Track 3 to await their turn into the yard. Through Dunlap, the railroad is somewhat difficult to railfan, with the busy US 33 hugging the southern edge of the right-of-way. One decent spot, however, is milepost 414 at Peddler's Village Road, where the right-of-way is open enough for some early morning shots before the sun swings too far to the south. Now accepting their clear indication, this intermodal will zip straight through Elkhart with an ultimate destination somewhere in Chicago just a few hours from now. A bit further to the west is Control Point 417, added during the expansion program to increase the train route options between Elkhart and Goshen. The dispatcher has taken the opportunity here, crossing over this yard-bound manifest over to the third track so they'll have a straight shot into the yard ahead. After realigning the crossovers back for normal movement, the dispatcher cleared this Canadian Pacific train eastwards out of Elkhart. As they clear our location, the CP train runs between two westbounds, one parked on track 3, and an NS rack train running along track number 1. The final signals before Elkhart are perched atop a signal cantilever bridge at milepost 419. The next eastbound manifest is out of the yard, rolling our way, but we'll be holding up to wait for a more favorable signal to keep clear of grade crossings. It isn't long before a westbound intermodal arrives, rushing for Elkhart with Amtrak's Lakeshore Limited running in his wake. However, they still must slow down for the Elkhart curve, which will delay the already tardy Amtrak train even more, proving that even 3 tracks is not always enough for every situation, especially when faster passenger trains are part of the mix. Meanwhile, the eastbound has gotten his light, and so off they go to the sound of twin 16-cylinder EMD 645 power plants pumping out 3,000 horsepower apiece. As predicted based on the railroad's online tracking service, Amtrak number 49 appears moments later, running at reduced speed thanks to that intermodal up ahead. At long last, 63 miles west of Butler, we've reached Elkhart, home of NS's major hump yard facilities, refueling pad, and much more. Our last scene for this episode of the trilogy is just west of the westward absolute signals guarding control point 421, where an approach indication awaits this westbound grain train. And that'll do it for this special edition of the Thornapple River Rail series. In the second part, we'll pick up again at the legendary Elkhart Curve and continue to follow this incredible railroad westwards towards Porter Junction and ultimately Chicago, Illinois. Be sure to click through to that, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, leave any questions in the comments below. This has been a special edition of the Thornapple River Rail series, created by Alex Christmas and copyright 2018, all rights reserved.